Hope you're able to see my screen. So my screen is visible, right? Oh, okay, fine. Yeah. So, as of yesterday, what is that we have covered? In our previous class, we have seen the basic terminologies like your node, pool member, pool, and virtual server, and the flow of configuration also we have seen. So, first of all, you have to define your node, and then that node is going to be added as a member inside the pool while we are configuring the pool, and then the pool is going to be associated to a virtual server. As part of the virtual server configuration, we are also going to be associating a virtual IP address, means the listener IP address. So basically what happens, your big IP LTM device is going to be listening to an IP address, the configured IP address on a specific port number, and that virtual server is also been associated with a pool. The pool is associated with the pool members, right? So when the traffic is received on the big IP's external interface, and it will be looking into how many listeners we have, is there is any listener configured for listening to this particular IP and service. Then if a match found, then the respective member, one of the member from the pool associated to the virtual server will be chosen, and the traffic is going to be forwarded to the destination. Till this point we have seen yesterday, am I right? Okay. Now let's say, just a recollection, let's recollect certain things. Now I have my LTM device, and we have seen that this is connected to the external world. Users are over connected to the internet, and then we have a couple of internal servers, right? And these internal servers are hosted with an identical service. Like, even though they're all web server, they're all being hosted with atos.com. That's what the example we have seen. atos.com, their IP addresses are like 10.1.1.11, 10.1.1.12, and 10.1.1.13. So I have three servers. One server still, that screen issue is going on, so that's why I'm just keeping that three servers. The internal interface is connected to a VMnet 1. This is considered as a switch. All of my internal servers are connected to that VMnet switch, VMnet 1 switch. And internal IP address, I have configured the self IP address as 10.1.1.2, and the floating IP address is 10.1.1.1. So the external interface is connecting to the external world. Now I have taken a case of what? 1.1.1.1 as my virtual server IP listening on port number 80, and this virtual server is associated to a pool called as what? Atos web server pool. Atos web server pool. In that we have multiple servers associated to it, correct? So like a blue server, and then we have a green server, and then we also have yellow server. So this server is nothing, is considered as what? A pool member. This pool member has an IP address like a 10.1.1.11:80. The green server is identified as what? 10.1.1.12:80. Then the yellow server is identified as what? 10. I think I have some problem. 1.1.13:8. So these are all the pool members. We have three members, and these members are associated to an Atos web server pool. This Atos web server pool has been referred inside a virtual server. The virtual server has been configured with an IP address of 1.1.1.1 and listening on the port number of 80. I think somebody is joining, am I right? I hear that sound, not sure. Yeah, Anita is joining. Now let's assume that how the traffic is going to be going from, means initiated from your the external PCs. As a person or as an end device which is connected to the internet, they are just opening up a browser, and then they're trying to access what? Atos.com. Now, basically, what happened first time when atos.com is being requested from the internal PC, from the PC who's connected to the internet, the name needs to be resolved to an IP address. What is the order of precedence? Where it will check first? The domain name needs to be resolved to an IP address. Where it is going to be checking first? First of all, it will check internal cache, correct? The DNS name domain cache is going to be verified. If a match found, immediately that IP address is going to be used. If not, it will check the host file which is found in your etc host. If it is not, then it will be going to your DNS server, correct? So this is how the name resolution is going to be happening when a fully qualified domain name has been requested to resolve into an IP address. The existing DNS server would have that information. If it is not having it, it will be for the query is going to be forwarded to the upstream DNS server. So until we found the authoritative name server, the name resolution couldn't happen. So the authoritative name server has the responsibility of giving the details, and this is the IP address associated to your given fully qualified domain name. Now the client who is having an IP address of what? 3.3.3.3 knows the IP address of atos.com, which is 1.1.1.1. Since the browser has been used, the request is going to be forwarded to TCP/80. Now the traffic is coming to the public network, means internet. The traffic is coming to the internet. The internet knows, I don't know why. What? Now the internet knows how to forward the traffic to 1.1.1.1. Am I right or not? So because 1.1.1.1 is a publicly reachable IP address, the traffic is being forwarded to 1.1.1.1 within the internet. The proper routing will be there. Somehow the packet is hitting. Yes. Hello. Can you hear me? What happened? Somebody called me. Jashwant? How about all of them are not able to hear me, or okay, you want me to connect to mobile so that like the same way yesterday how we got worked? Let me do that one. Give me a minute. Let me connect to my mobile. Hello, can you hear me now? Okay. And then, so I was trying to explain you how the name resolution is happening. Now the NPC which is connected to the internet knows the IP address of atos.com, which is 1.1.1.1, right? And this is an IP address which is actually routable on the internet. The traffic goes to the internet. The traffic is being forwarded to 1.1.1.1. So since I have the association with the service provider and he gave me this IP address to me, so the service provider will forward the traffic to my external interface. That's how I have connected. Now the LTM is receiving the traffic which is coming from 3.3.3.3 to 1.1.1.1. The destination port number is going to be TCP/80. The source port number is going to be a random port number which is going to be greater than 1023. That's the behavior of a client, right? Let me take a case. This has been picked up a port number of 1180. Let's say that this is the client port number. Now what the LTM has to do is, first of all, since the request has been received, it will check whether the received IP address and the port number is matching any of my virtual server configuration or not. Yes, according to my configuration, there is one listener which is 1.1.1.1 listening on port number 80. So the received request needs to be processed by the LTM whatever we have. Now since this is a match, now the LTM needs to decide where the request needs to be forwarded, because the actual web server is not running on the LTM itself. So it has to identify one of the server member to whom the request can be forwarded out. So in that case, the virtual server is trying to identify the pool which is associated to the virtual server, a match found, which is Atos web server. So I have three different members, right? I have three different members within the pool, and one of the member is going to be chosen, and based on what the member is going to be chosen, we typically call it as a load balancing algorithm that we will see today. So there are different load balancing algorithms. So depending on the application that is being managed by the LTM and what all the characteristics are expected, accordingly the respective load balancing technique also needs to be chosen. But anyway, the default load balancing technique is called as a round robin load balancing method. So based on that, one of the server has been chosen. So let's assume that 10.1.1.11 has been chosen. So 11 or 12. So okay, let's take a case that the 12 has been chosen according to the load balancing algorithm. Now the request needs to be forwarded out via the internal interface where the servers are reachable for me. Now when I'm trying to send the traffic out via my internal interface, what I do is I will keep the source IP address. This is the default behavior. Because the request is coming from 3.3.3.3 with a port number of 1180. Now the destination IP address alone is going to be translated to the chosen web server, which is 10.1.1.12:80. So what the LTM does is it has received a request on the public facing interface. Since a matching virtual server is there, the listener IP address has been chosen, and then the respective pool has been identified, and one of the member from the pool has to be chosen to forward this request so that the reply can come back. The point here is the load balancing technique is the key component with which the server has been chosen. So once the server has been chosen, the request needs to be forwarded through the internal interface. While I'm sending the traffic out via my internal interface, I will keep the original IP address of the received request, whereas the destination IP address is going to be translated to the chosen server's internal IP address. So the received IP address is 1.1.1.1, whereas the request is going to be forwarded to 10.1.1.12, and the port number is also going to be 80. Now the traffic will be going to 10.1.1.12 on TCP 80. Since the web service is also running, he is going to be responding back to the LTM device. While he is responding, what will be the original IP address now? So 10.1.1.12, the source port number is going to be 80. The destination IP address is 3.3.3.3. The destination port number is 1180. Now this request has been received on the internal interface as a response from the web server. Now the web server needs to send this traffic to the client. While the traffic is being sent via the egress interface, it is going to be, the source IP address is going to be translated now to 1.1.1.1:80 to the destination IP address of 3.3.3.3 on their port number 1180. Is this clear till this point? This is how the traffic is going to be flowing through your LTM. Till this point is clear? We will keep adding certain things over a period of time. Any clarifications required on this point as of now? Okay. It looks like destination net. Am I right? It looks like destination net. But is that actually destination net? What is destination net? We have seen in your ASA, right? So source net, destination net. We had all these discussions in ASA. What is destination net? Simply put, if the destination IP address of the received packet has been translated to something, then it is destination net. If the source IP address of the received packet is getting translated, then what we call it as source net. Correct, na? If both of them are being translated, twice net. Simply you can remember like this. On the received packet, if the destination IP address is getting translated, then we call it as a destination net. On the received packet, if you translate the source IP address, then it is called as a source net. Clear, na? But what is the... Hello? I heard some sound. I thought there was a question. Is there any question over there? Fine. Okay. Let's assume like this. See, In destination NAT, assuming that if I have 1.1.1.1, of course, destination static path is also possible. What I'm trying to basically doing is 1.1.1.1 is mapped to 10.1.1.12. Not a problem. It looks like the same thing. But the condition is always when the traffic is received to 1.1.1.1, it will always be translated to 10.1.1.10. Of course, I agree that the translation is happening on the destination IP address. But assume that if you have one more server 10.1.1.13 and 10.1.1.11, now how come using this destination NAT of one single IP address can be mapped to multiple internal servers? If they are different services, then you could do that one through the help of a static path. You can do that one. Like if the request is coming to 1.1.1.1 on port number 80, it could be forwarded to 10.1.1.12. Same way, if the received request is for a different service and the destination IP address can be translated to a different IP address altogether. We typically call this as what? A static path in Cisco's terminology. But is that how we are working here? We have multiple internal server. All of them are offering the same service to the requesting clients. But the difference is what? The LTM takes the responsibility of identifying one of the member who is going to be processing this request. According to the chosen server, the IP address is going to be translated. The destination IP address is going to be translated. So basically what LTM has to do is LTM has to interfere between the client and the actual server who is going to be responding. Based on the server chosen, certain details are going to be modified. You understand what I'm saying? So from the external people's perspective, LTM is the front-ending device. They assume that LTM is the one actually providing the services. Behind the scene, we have multiple servers who are offering the same service to the requesting clients. The purpose of keeping multiple servers internally is what? So that the load can be distributed evenly or according to the configuration. At the same time, the response time to the request is going to be very much little. It's not going to be taking more of time because multiple people are processing the traffic. Multiple people are handling different connections. So obviously, the packets no need to wait. The request no need to wait because there are so many people who can respond. So the LTM takes the responsibility of forwarding that request to the respective server who can respond faster than according to the algorithm, whatever we have it. Now, from the people who are sitting on the internet, who is going to be offering the service? The LTM is the one. Of course, they wouldn't be aware of there is an LTM, but from their perspective, 1.1.1.80 is an actual server. But what LTM does is LTM is hiding all your internal server details, and for all of the requests actually given to 1.1.1 is being front-ended by your LTM device. Am I right? Am I right or not? So do the actual endpoints who's trying to access the services knows about the original server IPs? We have multiple servers over there offering the same service. They wouldn't be. The clients wouldn't be aware of the actual IP address, or do we have only one single server who is offering the service or multiple servers offering the service? We won't be aware of it as an endpoint. The people who are connected to the internet and they're trying to accessing the service, they will not be aware of it. From their perspective, they are sending the request to a single person, but it is going to be handled efficiently by the device. So the LTM is going to be the front face for all of the services. That is, the servers wouldn't be sharing their identity to the external world. That is going to be managed by LTM. Can we say my LTM is acting as a proxy for my all internal services? Can we say that or not? Okay, it is not going to be a simple destination NAT which is being performed by any of the NAT devices. Here, the LTM is going to be acting as a full proxy, means it is going to be proxyfying all the connections. So internally I have the servers, externally the clients are going to be trying to accessing the servers. For all of them, I will raise my hand. Atos.com, I am the Atos.com, what do you want? Okay, this is what I want. So that is going to be rephrased and then forwarded to the internal server. Whatever the response is coming from the server is going to be sent to the clients as it is coming from the LTM itself. You remember during our ASA class, we were talking about different types of firewall technologies. packet filters, stateful inspection firewall, proxy firewall, next generation firewall. What proxy does, it sits between the client and server. Any communication which is going to be happening between them is going to be intercepted by the proxy, and it has the ability of doing the filtering as well. You remember this discussion during our ASA firewall, during our security fundamentals discussion. I have explained all these things. Hope you guys remember that. Okay. Just a week back, right? Just a week back, we had all these discussions. Fine. Now we know we know what is the meaning of the proxy now. Am I right? So proxy is going to be handling the complete set of requests, and from the endpoint's perspective, the LTM is the one who's actually processing all the requests and who's going to be responding. But actually, we have internal servers to offer those services. LTM sits between the internal servers and the external clients, right? So why I'm not simply saying that this is destination NAT, because destination NAT, we know that a single IP address has been mapped to one of the single IP addresses. Now here, LTM can look into various aspects of handling that connection. Of course, based on the algorithm, a server is going to be chosen, a member of the pool is going to be chosen, and based on the member chosen, the destination IP address is going to be translated. So is that the only functionality? There are so many things the LTM could also modify. The LTM can also look into it. So LTM is not simply doing a destination NAT. The architecture which is being followed by LTM is called as what? A full proxy architecture. Is that clear? Okay. Okay. Just clearing all my work over here. Now, so we have also seen the management thing, right? So we have seen what happened to my, and which are all the interfaces. I mean, by default, we have an interface called as E0 or 1/1.0 and 1.1, then 1.2 we have reserved for external, and 1.3 we have been reserving for this is how I have explained you. So 1.0 has been reserved for the management, whatever the IP address you have configured, and using that interface, using that IP address, the management could be possible. And while we were running the wizard, I was also showing you that a port lockdown feature, if I'm going to be locking down, none of the activity can be possible on that interfaces. Now, according to my understanding, yes, yep. I don't think so, because I'm seeing everything as I'm writing on my screen, on my. Okay, so you want me to stop and restart the sharing? That would be. Okay, let me write something. So 1.0, I think, which is being reserved. Is that visible? No, I just wrote 0 over there. Okay, so 1.0 is the reserved for management purpose, and we call that interface as what? Out of band management purpose, out of band management interface. Of course, in band management is also possible on these interfaces, but depending on the port lockdown feature, we may be in a position to manage the device using that interface IP address. Now, let me go back to my device. You can see that, okay. If I'm going to be opening up the browser, okay, my external IP address is what? What is my external IP? 192.168.2.141. That's the IP address. Let's try to access this one. Am I right? That's the IP address, I guess. Yeah, that's the IP address. I'm trying to gain management access to that particular interface. Let's wait for a while. No, it's not accessible. You can see that one can't reach this page. I'm just trying to check whether the management or the Right, so I'm just trying to check what is the status of my. I'm just getting into the actual IP address, which is 192.168.2.1. It's an external VLAN. Port logged on. See what it has been mentioned? None. Under network, under self IP, I have chosen the IP to which IP I'm trying to manage. So 141 is the self IP, and that IP is not allowed to do any sort of management on this. So I can go ahead and say, I can also say allow custom, or I can also say allow all, or I can also say allow default. Say update. I'm just saying default, by default, the port 443 is going to be allowed. Because of that, if I go to my external PC on which I was trying to manage the device using the external interface IP address, which was throwing an error. Now I'm trying to refresh it. You can see that the login page is coming up. Now admin Genesis 1234. That's the password I configured on my FI device. You can see that I'm able to log in. The complete set of management is also possible. So if you wanted to manage the device on their regular interfaces or the revenue ports, you can do that one. But before you do that one, make sure that the respective management option has been enabled on that interface. Without that, the device cannot be managed. So mostly we won't be enabling the management on the external interface or external VLAN, but we would be enabling the management option on the internal interface. If you want, you can do that one. It's not going to be causing any kind of a damage, but make sure that on the right interface you are enabling this management so that the device can be managed using a regular interface. What type of a management it is called? In-band management. You're getting my point, right? In-band management. Right, anyway, so yesterday I think I didn't give this information. That's why I just started with that. Now let's go back to our presentation. Where we stopped, I don't know. Okay, anyway. Okay, let me see how many of you are answering these questions now. The terminologies we are going to be recollecting once again, though I have given the brief information about that. So FI terms, processing traffic, pools and virtual servers. This is what we have seen practically yesterday. What is the node? What is node? See the correct. The actual IP address configured on the server. Okay. What is the role of it? It's just an identification of the server using its IP address. What is a pool member? Okay. Okay. So, correct. Please complete. Correct. So basically, pool member is a member of a pool. That's why we are calling it as a pool member. A member of the pool which is going to be running with the same services. So we will have multiple servers, physical servers. All of them are going to be having a unique IP address. We are referring them into our FI as a node. So what is the purpose of adding the node? So that they can be identified as the member within a pool who's offering similar services, right? So the same server, we could have different services. So the same node could be part of a different pool, and different pool, it can also be a pool member. It can be a different pool member, or the same service can also be called in different pools. So basically, pool member is a reference of the service which is running on the node. So pool is a collection of pool members, correct? So to which the load can be redirected to. Now the pool is capable of identifying multiple services, but when the request needs to be forwarded, that is where the virtual server comes into picture. Am I right? What are all the components we configure in virtual server? What are all the servers we configure? What are all the components we configure? What are all the parameters we configure under the virtual server? Okay, and then? Okay. Name, virtual IP name, and then the listener IP address, the listening port number, and then most importantly, one more parameter. What is that? Exactly. Without specifying, correct, 100% correct. So without referring the pool, there is no point in having a virtual server. Same way, without having a virtual server, there is no point in having a pool. So they have to be bound together. That binding is happening through the help of a virtual server. Virtual server binds the virtual IP and the pool together. Don't forget that. Now let's see this one. I have an FI LTM device. We are connected to internet, the external clients. And then of course there are certain clients as well. The internal network people can also be connecting to that. I have my external, I have my servers which are going to be running with the same services. Am I right? Node, what is that? The physical IP address. The physical server's IP address is what? The node. So then what is the 10.100.100.1:80? What is this? What is the name that has been? Correct. Pool member, node plus port, right? Then they are going to be referred in a pool, the group of members, and then they're all going to be referred into the virtual server. Am I right? I'm sorry. I think I have gone to the next slide. I'm sorry. Till this point is clear, huh? Pool member, pool member and node. Is that clear? Okay. Now we are talking about the virtual server. Basically what happens? It is one where the client is going to be sending their traffic. A pool will be associated with the virtual server. Virtual server have an IP address and often ports. Virtual server is often called as a listener, right? Listener. Okay, so keep that alone in your mind. Forget about this glip and whip. I'll tell you this one little later. What is that? So that you will not be confusing on that. So big IP is a default deny device. That means what? No traffic is going to be permitted to pass through. And you remember when we are talking about the security devices like your ASA or any of the firewalls, by default, it is not going to be allowing any traffic to be permitted to pass through. Because of the adaptive security algorithm, ASA was allowing the traffic from higher security level to lower security level even without the policy. But basically a security device is not going to be permitting any of the traffic until unless explicitly certain configurations are done on the device. So what we have to do is we have to configure a virtual server. Without that, the big IP is not at all going to be processing any of the client data received on the external interfaces. When a request arrives, the big IP translates the destination IP address from the virtual server to that the actual server client sees the pool of servers as a single server, so the name is virtual. This is what I have explained you now using the whiteboard. Till this point is clearer? Is there any clarification is required? Any clarification is required? Hopefully no. Okay, fine then. Now, so the same setup, now we are seeing that the virtual server IP address is what? 10.200.200.1. Now the virtual server is identifying all the pool members. Actual servers is running on that. And then the NAT is going to be performed. And then we are not calling this as a destination NAT. Keep that in mind. So, now packet 1, the source is going to be anything. The destination IP address is 10.200.200.1, which is nothing but the virtual server's IP address. Now what happens now? The traffic is going to be, the chosen server is 1. Because of that, the source IP address is 10.200.200.1. Is that true? By default, it is not true. I will show you. I will tell you why this has been given like this. Then the packet is coming up. The different server could be chosen, or packet 3 is coming up. A different server has been chosen now. The destination IP address, forget about the source IP address. I'll tell you what is that happening here. Right? So the packet is being chosen to a different IP address altogether. So this is how the traffic is going to be happening. Except one point here I just want to mention according to the slide, the source IP address will not be translated. Hope you remember using what I was explaining on my whiteboard. The default behavior of your the F5 LTM is it will translate the destination IP address, but it will not translate the source IP address. Is that point is clear? I'll come to this one now. Once that is clear, I will explain you what is that we are trying to do here. The source address not supposed to be translated by default. It will not be translated at all. Do you understand what I'm saying? Hello? Okay. Now the scenario is like this. Now what is that I'm trying to do is, let me take the same scenario over here. Okay, where is my whiteboard? Here. Now see here, I have my servers here. Now these servers are going to be communicating with a different set of servers which is there on a different part of my organization. Now basically how they are going to be connected, I have my LTM here. The LTM is responsible for what is it called? Handling the external requests. So the request which is coming from the external world, the LTM is going to be handling it. Let's say the IP address what I have chosen is 1.1.1.1. So now this is connected to a switch. It is in turn connected to my servers. So I have 10.1.1.2 as the self IP and .1 as my floating IP. All of my 10.1.1.11, 10.1.1.12, 10.1.1.13. Now before we get into this discussion, we have seen that the request is coming from 3.3.3.3. Now the LTM will not be translating. That's the discussion we had, right? So on the front end, the source IP address is 3.3.3.3. The source port number is 1180. The destination IP address is 1.1.1.1:80. Now the load balancer or the LTM is going to be changing the source IP. Will it be changing the source IP address on the internal interface? No. The source IP keep the same, 3.3.3.3. Now the destination IP address has been changed to 10.1.1.12:80. So this is what the discussion we had, right? Now the request has been forwarded to 10.1.1.12. Now 10.1.1.12 sees the request is coming from 3.3.3.3. How the server will respond back? What is the first step when the server has to respond back for the request what it has received? It has to look into the routing table, right? The routing table will be having a default gateway configured as 10.1.1.1. Because of that only, the return traffic is coming to, you understand what I'm saying? Because of that only, the return traffic is coming to the server. Am I right? If I don't have the default gateway configured on the server, do you think that the response will come back to the LTM? That is on the slide. No. Now, no. 1.1.1.1 is the virtual server. On where? On the actual server is what you are configuring the default gateway. It's routing, ma. Simpla திருப்பி சொல்லுங்கன்றீங்களே. Right. See, the request has been initiated from the client, right? So that point is clear or not? The request has been initiated from 3.3.3.3. It is being forwarded to 1.1.1.1. The traffic has been received on the external interface of my LTM, correct? So this is clear. When the traffic is going to be forwarded to one of the server which is internally available for me, the source IP address is going to be kept as the same. The virtual server, the source IP address is what? 3.3.3.3. The source port number is 1180, whereas the destination IP address got translated to one of the server which I have chosen according to the load balancing algorithm. Adu purida? Till that point is clear? Now the traffic is coming to the server. Now the server has to respond back to which IP address? The requested IP address, the client IP address, which is 3.3.3.3. Now the server needs to know how to reach back 3.3.3.3. How that is possible? By looking into the default gateway of the server. Only then the traffic will come back to the LTM. Now LTM maintains the connection details, like if the traffic is coming from 10.1.1.12 from port number of 80 to what 3.3.3.3 to the port number of 1180, I know that this is part of the same connection. I will forward to the client. This is how the full proxy architecture is happening on the LTM. The same thing I explained earlier. Now the point is, assume that you have a different set of servers, right? And these servers might also be having another set of servers. I might be having a data center. I might be having an internal network. Could be anything. But what is that going to be happening? I will take the help of a router which provides connectivity to my data centers and all. Now these servers which is there in data center 1 also need to communicate with the other servers in other data center or in other IP segment. How that will be happening? How that will be happening? This switch will be connected, the one of the port is going to be connected to the router, correct? Am I audible, guys? Now what will be the default gateway? So here, can I configure the same IP address over here, 10.1.1.2 or 3 here? Then IP conflict will come, right? So the IP address for my router's internal interface will be in the same IP segment, but it will be a different IP address. Now tell me, what will be the default gateway on the servers now? Is that going to be 10.1.1.1, which is the internal interface IP address, self or floating, or 10.1.1.3, that is the router's IP address? What will be your default gateway in this case? Because you cannot have more than one default gateway, am I right or am I wrong? How many default gateways can be configured on a client PCs, on a PCs? Right, in this case I have two different entries. One is going to be my LTM, the other one is going to be my router. What would be the default gateway that I am allowed to configure and why I would do that one? If I am going to be keeping 10.1.1.1 or 2 as my default gateway, the response will go only to the LTM so that the request can be served. The client request can be served. But these servers needs to communicate with the data other servers as well. For that they need to have a specific route. So you have two choices. Choice number 1, have the default gateway as LTM's internal interface and then add the specific routes for the servers that you are trying to reach. You remember we were trying to add something called as a route add for this particular destination, networking fundamentals discussion, you remember? So on routers, can I add, on the PCs, can I add a specific route or not? Is that possible or not? Hello? Okay, that is choice number 1. Choice number 2, you can have a default gateway as the router's IP address 10.1.1.3 and then you may need to add the specific routes for each and every client that you are talking about. Am I right? Am I right? What I'm saying here? I can have the default gateway as router and the specific gateway for all the people who are connecting from the internet. Then it will be a difficult task for me. Do you understand the concept or not now? Okay. Now my point is, this is also going to be tedious if I have multiple internal networks with which my internal servers are going to be communicating. So you have to add multiple routes on the servers. And if I change the default gateway as my router's interface, then obviously I'll not be able to respond back to all my the people who are connecting to me via the LTM. You may be claiming that if I'm having the default gateway as the router's IP address and then it is also connected to internet, obviously the response will go from here, right? Like this, am I right? So the request is coming from here and then the response will go as the default gateway as the router and then it will go back to the original server, original client. Do you understand this one or not? Do you think this will work? Give me a minute. Okay. Agreed. But can you please confirm me? I'm not worried about the load now. The request goes to the router. Router can forward that response to the requested client. Do you think the client can process it? See, the client has sent a SYN packet from 3.3.3.3 to 1.1.1.1. Now the server is responding back to 1.1, server is responding back to 3.3.3 with SYN-ACK. Now the traffic is coming here. If the packet is going out, either you will be translating the source IP address to a different IP or you are not translating at all. In either of the case, the 3.3.3.3 is receiving a SYN-ACK from a different IP address other than the request to which I have sent it. You got the point? See, the client is sending a request to 1.1.1.1, but the client is receiving a SYN-ACK from a different IP altogether, either 1.1.1.2 or 10.1.1.12. Do you think that the client will accept this SYN-ACK packet? Then how come the communication is going to be happening? So that's where a solution has been introduced. Of course, it is not the solution, but we have an option. When you have this kind of a scenario, what I can do is the LTM, which is listening on 1.1.1.1. Now the client request is coming from 3.3.3.3. The same example, the request is coming from 3.3.3.3, the source port number of 1180, the destination IP address of 1.1.1.1, the port number of 80. I have my internal service. I'm sorry, I don't know why this is coming up. Right, let's say I have my internal service. I don't know, something is wrong. I have my internal service which has been configured with an IP address of 10.1.1.11, 10.1.1.12, 10.1.1.13, and I also have a router which provides connectivity to the external network. Of course, some internet connection is also there. Okay. Now the router is also connected to internet, and this is my DCs. Okay. Now my point is, how do I provide connectivity is you have a switch, the router is connected to the switch, the servers are also connected to the switch. Now we know that 10.1.1.2 as the self IP and .1 as the floating IP and 10.1.1.3 as the router's IP. Now what I can typically do on all of my internal servers, I can say that my default gateway is going to be my router because that's my priority, 10.1.1.3. Immediately there will be a question, then how come the LTM will be receiving the response for the request forwarded to the server? I can also pass on the instruction while I'm doing this one, while you're sending the request being forwarded to one of the server, I know that you will be translating the destination IP address to one of the chosen IP address, which is 10.1.1.12.80. By default, you will not be modifying the source IP address. What if I ask my LTM to translate the source address to the virtual server's IP address? Now what happens? Can you please tell me what happens now? Now the server is receiving the request, right? Not the virtual server's IP, I'm sorry. That's the wrong one. This is not the virtual server's IP. The source interface is what going to be used for translation. 10.1.1.2. That's the IP address gets translated to. We can say that we have an option. We can translate to the source IP, or we can also translate to the interface to which the translation is, to which the traffic has been sent to. Now, while the traffic is going out via this interface, the destination IP address got translated to 10.1.1.12:80, whereas the source IP address is translated to 10.1.1.2, port number 80. Now, this packet is received on the service which is running on 10.1.1.12. What is the source IP? 10.1.1.2. Do I need a default gateway to reach 10.1.1.2? If this translation is happening, do I need a default gateway to reach back 10.1.1.2 from the service perspective? Do I need it? Hello? Am I audible? Oh my God. So when the traffic is received on the external interface of your LTM, the source IP address was 3.3.3.3, the source port number was 1180, the destination IP address was 1.1.1.1, the destination port number was 80. So by default, what the LTM will do is the destination IP address of the received packet will be translated to the chosen server's IP address. So because of that, what happened? 1.1.1.1 got translated to 10.1.1.12:80. Till this point is clear? Now the source IP address is also going to be translated to the egress interface IP address. In this case, what is my egress interface? 1.1. What is the IP address associated to 10.1.1.2? Now 3.3.3.3 is getting translated to 10.1.1.2. So when the server receives the traffic, it sees that the request is coming from 10.1.1.2, not from 3.3.3.3. Am I right? Am I right or not? In this case, do I really need the default gateway to reach back 10.1.1.2? That's the question I was asking. Yeah, I know. I just disconnected and reconnected. Now, when the server receives the request, it is coming from 10.1.1.2. Now, the server has to respond back to 10.1.1.2. To reach 10.1.1.2, do I need a default gateway or a route? That is my question. Is the question clear or not? Do I need a default gateway on servers to reach 10.1.1.2? The answer is simple, yes or no. You can say anything. Do I need a default gateway to reach 10.1.1.2? Oh, I see. Now I have let two PCs here. Okay. Now this is 10.1.1.12. This is 10. I have a switch and I have two PCs connected. One PC has an IP address of 10.1.1.12 and the other PC has an IP address of 10.1.1.2. Do I have to configure any gateways on these PCs so that they can communicate with each other, or without the gateway they can talk to each other? Then why do I need a gateway here in this case then? Because the request is coming from 10.1.1.2, coming to 10.1.1.12. Can they communicate without a router? Yes, they can. Why do you need a gateway in this case? So because of that, what happens? The servers can have a default gateway configured as the router to reach the external data centers and all a different IP segment. So LTM will not translate the source IP address by default, but if you wanted to do it, yes, you can do that one as well. How do I do that one? See here, I come here, then now I can go to my local traffic, then pools. You can see the pools, right? This is what the pools that we have created, right? This is the pools, and we can see that this is the members. Can you see that all of the members are available? Now I'm just going to my virtual server, check the virtual server. Now can you see something called as the source address translation? Is that visible for you guys? Sorry, you want me to increase the font size? Let me zoom it once again. Is that visible now? Yeah, source address. By default, what is the setting? None. So if I wanted to translate this to an egress interface, I can do that through the help of what? AutoMap. That's it. There is something called as SNAT is also there. I'll tell you while we are talking about a different type of a virtual servers. I can do that one. Anyway, I'm just simply saying that AutoMap, which means what? The traffic is going to be translated to, the source IP address is going to be translated to the interface on which the packet is being sent out. Is that clear? Now, if you wanted to achieve a scenario of the router is going to be connected to LTM as well as to a router, and you wanted to send all of the traffic to the router, then the return traffic for the client request may not be going back to the LTM. So what I wanted to do is I'm just translating the source IP address as well. Because of that, I can simply configure the default gateway on my server. If the request is coming from the external world through the LTM, anyway LTM will translate now the source IP address to the egress interface IP address. In this case, what is that? 10.1.1.2. So the server doesn't require any default gateway to reach back 10.1.1.2. So the LTM will receive the response, and then the LTM can forward that responses to the original client who has sent the request. Clear or not? Any clarification? Any clarification? Please feel free to ask me. Don't hesitate. Not a problem at all. If you are clear, only then I'm going to be going to the next slide. Exactly. Correct. So there is also one more concept called as what internal to external, the traffic can also be initiated. The server might also be initiating the request from your internal network to the internet. That is also a scenario. But what you are saying is 100% correct. Don't restrict yourself only in that this is required. Don't ever say that one. Instead, simply say that for any reason, according to the architecture, according to your infrastructure, for any reason, if the source IP address needs to be translated to your egress interface IP address, your LTM will allow you to do that one. That's the point you need to understand. So depending on the routing requirements, if you wanted to have the translations to be performed, do it. If you don't want the translations to be performed, don't do it. But the point is, by default, LTM will translate the destination IP address, but not the source IP address. Please keep this in your mind. But can I translate it? Yes, you can do that one. Is that clear? Is this point is clear? Okay. Now, this scenario is a scenario where we have, sorry, I think I have taken a different example now. And this scenario has been taken with the source IP address translation. Now, tell me, the request is coming from the external clients to 10.200.200.1. Do you think that the source IP address will be translated by default if no configurations have been done? No. You agree that? Okay. Now, in this scenario, the source address has been translated. Because of that, the first packet, whatever the source IP address was, and whatever the destination IP address is supposed to be 10.200.200.1. Now the source IP address is getting translated to 10.200.200.1, and then the destination IP address is getting translated to 10.10.10.1. Is this clear? The source NAT will not be happening by default, but if you wanted to do it, you can do that one. That's the point I'm trying to make it. And the example what I have shown you is also AutoMap, which is the actual egress interface IP address to which the translation will be happening. The example on the picture is wrong. Keep that in mind. Do you understand? Okay. Am I clear or not, guys? Please. Okay, right. Now, this scenario, what happens now? Sorry. If I have this kind of a scenario, what is that I have to do? The request is coming here, and you might be having probably a gateway pointing to the router. The router could be forwarding the traffic to the internal network. But we wanted, this is an asymmetric routing scenario, right? We don't want this asymmetric routing to happen with while you have an LTM. Any traffic which is forwarded through the LTM, the response should also go back to the LTM, and that's the reason. If you wanted to address the NAT, if you wanted to translate the source IP address, yes, you can do that one. That's the point I'm trying to emphasizing here. Any questions? Please ask me. Shall I go to the next slide? Okay. Make sure you don't have any asymmetry routing happening. This is a point we were trying to emphasize over there. Okay. Now static route in server, configuring SNAT in F5, I just shown you. If any of the pool member is down, F5 will send the traffic to the next available pool member, and once the pool member comes back, the traffic flow will start again. So we have seen 3 members, right? According to our setup, we have 3 members in our pool. So what basically will happen is the purpose of having multiple pool member is distributing the load across members so that the response time will be faster and not a single server is going to be overloaded with traffic. That's where the LTM comes into picture. Now, according to my expectation requirement, I have 3 servers and all 3 servers will be receiving the request. If any one of the member fails, then what will happen? The requests are going to be forwarded to the remaining available members. When the failed member is coming back and joins into the pool, obviously the further requests are going to be forwarded to who newly joined into it. You're getting my point? So I have multiple members within the pool. The data is going to be distributed to the pool members according to the load balancing algorithm. If any member fails, further loads will be handled by only the available members. When the failed member comes back or you are adding additional member to the pool, from that moment, the load will further be distributed to the rest of the members as well. Right? So BIG-IP is going to be maintaining a full proxy architecture. I have already explained you. It maintains a separate TCP connections between the client and server. This allows tremendous and robust functionality. So this is what the full proxy architecture, even before I got into the presentation, I have explained you. Any questions as of now? Right, see here, now the request is coming from 10.1.1.80. The destination IP address is 10.200.200.1. Now the packet is being forwarded. The destination IP address got translated to 10.200.200.1. Sorry, the order of the packet is different. Okay, the response packet is going back now. No, in the earlier scenario we have seen the source packet is getting translated from the request received from the external clients. Now this is the response packet. The response packet is what 10.1.10.1:80 going to 10.200.200.1:4003. Now that traffic is being forwarded to the original client. The same thing, the second packet will also go. For any reason, if any one of the server fails, now what happens? The request is going to be the requests are going to be forwarded to the available members. That's the point you need to remember over here. Okay. The SYN is being forwarded to the clients. So it's a full proxy. You have 2 different connections. So the front end connections are going to be terminated with the F5. And we are going to be establishing a backend connection with the actual servers, and they are going to be pinned together. And why we need to understand, there is a concept called as a one connect. One connect will help you to reduce the number of concurrent connections between the F5 and the available servers. So I'll tell you while we are getting into the one connect, what is the benefit of using it. Now till this point is clear. See, there are 2 connections now because my F5 is acting as a proxy. The connections from the client is being terminated on F5, and then a connection from the F5 is going to be established with the server. Is that clear? There are 2 different client connections. Is that clear? Any questions as of now? Okay. So now this is what we have seen yesterday itself. Configure virtual servers. It's not pool, it's pools. Okay, pools and nodes, network map, and statistics. Now we have something called as we have seen how to create this node, and we have also seen how to configure the nodes. We have gone to the nodes and we have to click the create, and then we'll be able to configure the nodes, and then we can also so this part we will see this one. We are creating a new pool. In the pool we are just going to be referring the pool members, right? So the pool members are going to be added as a new address, or you can also add them as a node list. Keep in mind, this is the older version screenshot. In your newer versions, means not the newer, starting from 10 onwards, you can see that while you are adding the pool, you can also see that, let's say create, you can also add the fully qualified domain name instead of a new node. The new node, I'll be identifying them as an IP address, or So the node and then address. I can also go for new fully qualified domain name. I can give the fully qualified domain name and the port number. This option was not available in the older versions. That's why you are not able to see that option. And if I choose the node list, the nodes whichever has been configured earlier can be referenced over here. Okay. Now the virtual server is being configured. You know where you have to go to it, virtual server. You can click the plus symbol to add it, or once you have chosen the virtual server, you can also click on the create. We are giving a name, the virtual IP address, and then what is that we need to configure? The default pool. The pool is the one what we have created earlier. That's it. Right? So network map is the one. It will give you the details of it. See, what is that? Network map, we can see that test, and then the IP address is going to be 10.1.1.0. You can see that. What is the name of the pool we have created? You remember that? What is the name of the pool we have given? Test. What is the name of the virtual server we have created? This is a virtual server. What is the name we have given? Test. See, test is what we have given. So when I say the network map, first thing it will show you the name of the virtual server and what is the pool it is associated to and who are all the members associated to that pool. I'll show you that one, don't worry. Now I come to my guys. See, if I go to this network map, I can see the details of my, see, Atos Web. Can you see this one? This is the name of the virtual server I have created. Am I right? Atos SVS, Atos virtual server. And the virtual server IP address is 1.1.1.80, which is associated to a pool called as Atos Web. That pool has 3 members in it who are all blue web server, green web server, and yellow web server. Blue web server is identified through the IP address of 10.1.1.11:80. Green web server identification is 10.1.1.12:80. Yellow web server is 10.1.1.13:80. Is this clear? Is this clear? Okay. Fine then. Yeah. I thought I was not audible. So network map is going to be giving you a very good set of information at one place instead of going and checking. Okay, this virtual server is associated to which virtual pool? Go to the virtual server and check the pool, and then what are all the members associated to that? Go to the pool and then check the members. And then what is the IP address? What is the node? Then probably you may need to go to the pool members and then check it out to IP address associated to it. Instead of going to individual components and verifying the details, you can have the complete map, how the association configured, right? So that will be really helpful for you while you're trying to troubleshoot an issue. Is the right pool has been associated to the right virtual server, the right virtual pool members are associated to the pool. You can have the clear picture of it. So when you have one single virtual server and one single pool, you may not be feeling difficulty. You may not face difficulties. Think about a production network. How many pools will be there? How many virtual servers you would have even configured, right? How many pool members will be there? So it will be a little bit of confusing if you don't have proper set of information. So network map is going to be giving you a kind of a visibility for mapping of virtual server to pool to pool members. So this will be really helpful for you. So statistics is one location where we can see the status connection count in our traffic flow. See here. So I can go to my, going back to my statistics, and this is where it is going to be giving me the dashboard. See that one? This is the overall utilization of it. And then I can also give the performance statistics. Where is my traffic summary? I can go to this general. See here, I can see that how the traffic has been received on any of the interfaces on the client side, on the server. There is nothing is visible now. Why? Because no traffic got initiated. No traffic is flowing through the LTM right now. You can see that by generating some of the traffic from the client. Now I'm just opening up my client. Where is my client? PCA. Generate some traffic and then try to understand the traffic which is flowing through the LTM is being continuously monitored, and the statistics of that flow is being collected by LTM. which is 1.1.1.1. Let's try to access it. Now refresh it. You can see that the request is being forwarded to different servers. So the traffic is flowing through your LTM. Because of that, if I go and check it out, where is that? If I go and check it out, the refresh one, can you see the traffic flowing? The in and out. Can you see that? In 5 seconds average, out 5 seconds average. Is that visible for you guys? So you can see the complete statistics of it. So this will be so much helpful for you while identifying where the traffic is being forwarded, or when you have multiple pool members, to which of the pool member the traffic is being sent more, and why that is being sent. You may be in a position to troubleshoot them. Okay. Okay, fine. Any questions as of now? Mm, mm. Changing. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, 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 yes. That's how you have to do it. See what application you are going to be managing through your LTM. What is the behavior it is being expected? Based on that, you will be identifying the right mechanism for distributing the load across multiple pool members. So that's the reason before you work on it. Working on LTM is not going to be complicated. But the thing is, while you're trying to manage an application through an LTM, you need to understand LTM as well as the application's behavior. Then you have to do the configuration. So without knowing about how HTTP works, how do you manage it? Right? So that's what you're saying is a valid point. So depending on the application which is being managed by LTM, you have to choose the members, and then you have to choose the configurations with which the LTM could efficiently handle the traffic towards the servers. Any other questions? So you can get into the statistics to get the complete details of it, and then you will be able to, so just you need to explore each and every component over there and try to understand what is that going on before you go to the production. Get more of clarity on these devices, so that the moment you go to the production, it will be so simple for you to understand actually what is happening in your infrastructure, right? So logs we will see in a later class. I'm not going to be doing anything on the logs by now. Right? Any questions as of now? Couple of load balancing techniques I'm going to be teaching you. But shall we have a small break and then we will start this? I do understand. Okay, fine then. Yeah. So I'm just disconnecting from my mobile, and I'll join back to the call once I'm back from my tea break. Okay? Yes. Mm, 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 mm. ASA wouldn't be supporting. Yes, correct. What you're saying is correct. Mm, mm. Okay. Mm, mm, mm. No, I'll explain you now. But anyway, but why that question is being asked now? Okay, you got that. Oh, okay, okay. You faced this question yesterday. With whom? At Ossa? Oh, okay, okay. I think first of all I'll stop this recording. Yeah, this may be